Hey everybody, and welcome to a brand new installment of Nintendo News Report for Friday, August 14th, 2015. I am your host, Alexander Kulafi, and today, joining me in a very special pre-birthday celebration, Canada's very own Donald Terrio.
Yes, at the top of the hour, you'll actually see somebody level up live on the show.
This show will be at least 40 minutes long, because I will not let this end
I wish you told me that before I agreed to do it.
until Donald finally has his 48th birthday.
I'm not that old, but, well, we'll talk about that when the time comes.
Okay. Also joining me, very, very special guest, considering he just ended his 10-ish year reign on Radio Free Nintendo this past week, replacing Scott Thompson, who unfortunately had to cancel at the last minute, Dr. Jonathan Metts. Hello, Johnny.
Hello.
How does it
I'm
feel?
not replacing Scott. I'm just here. I'm substituting for him temporarily.
I'm proud to announce the new host of Nintendo News Report.
Nope. Definitely not. No, I'm still loyal.
Johnny was very kind to join us at it was like 10:05 when I texted him, so thank you very much for joining me.
I'm just returning a favor, Alex. We'll talk about that later.
We will talk about it later. We both have exciting projects to discover with you at the end of the show.
Sure.
Anywho, getting this right off. Actually, no, I actually want to ask you something first, Johnny. How does it feel, this being the first podcast you've recorded since ending your reign on Radio Free Nintendo?
Is this a podcast? I don't know. This is.
You know what?
This feels nothing like what I'm used to.
We're the next generation, Johnny.
Oh, this is the new hotness. I see.
There you go. Nintendo News Report, Friday, August 14th, 2015. Top story this week, Super Mario Maker. There was an overview trailer that released for the game, and normally this would not be a top story to appreciate. But this video was very special, in that it revealed a lot of things that a lot of people wanted to know, and it also probably did the strongest job of selling me on this game. Johnny, did you see this 7-minute trailer?
Nope, I'm useless.
That's okay. I'll tell you some of the stuff that happened in it. Donald, you definitely saw this trailer.
I saw the trailer, and then I sent it to my coworker, who probably thought, I probably need to buy this game and a Wii U, so it did its job. But it demonstrated how you could use the game to make music, and you can also record your own sound effects to trigger at certain points in the level, so it'll set off a fireworks display if you choose to at some point. But
like in Little Big Planet, there are these switches sometimes that you walk past it and then a sound will pop out or a thing will pop out. This does the exact same thing with fireworks. You can trigger it with a microphone, you can shout "Happy Birthday" into your Wii U gamepad and it'll say it as you walk past it in the level. That's pretty cool. And then you were also saying, Donald?
But there was also the thing that caused a bit of a kerfuffle on the internets, how the construction portion of the game, you'll start with a limited palette on the opening day, and once you've played in the editor for 5 minutes, you'll unlock more things to use the next day. Some people took a great deal of exception to this.
Yeah, the first day, it's pretty much the bare essentials. I think there's question mark blocks, there's a Goomba, there's a green turtle shell, which you can shake and make the red turtle shell and stuff. But, Bowser wasn't accessible, bullet bills weren't accessible, I don't think. I'm pretty sure that you won't be able to make, World 1-1 in Super Mario Bros. Until, day 6 or 7.
Yeah, I think it's day 6 you get the final thing you need for that. So in the race of what'll go up first, 1-1 or a body part, the body part won.
Okay. And then
what kind of basic stuff from level 1-1 are they not giving you until a week into the game's release?
I think we have a picture somewhere.
Yeah,
They not give you a flagpole until. It's not that much stuff in the first level.
Yeah, you can get most of it in the first one, but it's things like, I don't think you can get invisible blocks until day 6.
Oh, okay.
So you can't do the full 1-1 experience with that invisible mushroom just after the skip play.
You kind of can because that invisible block is conditional, so it doesn't always appear even in the original game. I think if you're playing two-player and player one gets the one-up mushroom and then player two won't be able to or something like that, or if you get it and then you die. I don't remember. It's been a long time since I tried it, but it doesn't always show up there from what I remember.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't have a problem with the idea of the game doling out things to you to make levels over a period of time. Like, I think giving me only a few tools at first and then giving me more tools the more I play will make it easier for me to grab onto this create a level mode, which I wouldn't otherwise grab onto. The thing I take more umbrage with is the fact that for the first 9 days after release, it's going to be all these people putting levels online that don't have the full tool set. So there's going to be a flood of what feels like relatively limited levels compared to what the game is actually capable of.
Well, maybe they don't let you upload levels until later on.
Do you really think that in the first 10 days, like the most fertile period of the post Super Mario Maker release, that they wouldn't let you upload anything?
Yep. I don't know if that's what they're doing. I have no idea. I'm not nearly as informed as you guys are about this game, but I totally think that's a thing that they might do because they might say, this game, we want you to be able to upload levels, but that's not the first thing you should be doing. You should actually practice with the tools, play your own levels, share them with friends, discuss them, try different ideas, get some experience with the editor before you go and send it out to the world and try to inflict it upon other people. I could totally see them doing that.
Sure. That's not a good idea, though, is it?
I I think making a good level in this game will be more difficult than most people assume. I think,
Hmm.
I think it'll be easy to make a level. I think it'll be hard to make a good level. And just like you said, there's the danger of the whatever the store or the browser, whatever you want to call it, getting flooded with really bad levels. And so one way to counteract that is to kind of require people to get up to a certain basic skill level before they're allowed to put it up there for the public. So it makes some sense to me. I don't know if it's the best idea, but I think it could work.
Yeah, it could work. Johnny, are you excited for this game?
Yeah, I bought it today. I I uh, I,
Preload.
I preloaded it. Yep, from the eShop, and I called the Nintendo customer service line and requested my physical booklet to be mailed, and they were very nice. Nintendo customer service is always very good every time I've ever dealt with them, and they told me that they're going to try to ship out those booklets before the game's actually out. So I think it could be cool to get it a couple days early and flip through it and get hyped up, the way we used to when, for instance, I can remember being a kid and buying a game in the city like 2 hour drive away from my hometown and only being able to look through the instruction booklet for like 2 hours in the backseat of the car before I got to go home and actually play it. And I would get so excited. And I remember, actually, this is a funny story that's kind of related. When the N64 came out, um, we were at a mall in the city, and I didn't know that it was actually for sale yet. I didn't know the release date. I knew about it, and I was excited for it. I was planning on getting it, but I didn't know exactly when it was coming out. And we went to the store, and I was looking at the demo, and then I looked over and saw that they were actually selling them. And I think there was one left. I got them to hold it for me while I went and grabbed my mom, and we paid for it. And my mom actually, or my sister actually joked that she would bet me $10 that I could get the whole car ride home without opening the box and looking through the instruction manual. And I said, nope, don't even. I don't even want to be. I don't have to deal with that. I don't want your money. I want to read the instruction book to the new Super Mario game and get excited. So that was great.
Yeah, I guess your story kind of makes me think like, is this included booklet kind of like an exterior manual for the game?
I don't think it'll be the same as the instruction manual. I think it'll be more like a bonus, not a strategy guide, but I guess they're calling it an ideas booklet or something.
Yeah,
That's
something like
giving you
that.
inspiration to give you a few ideas to try to make in the game.
Hmm.
So
It's
I think it'll be cool. It'll be a nice thing to have, and I really appreciate Nintendo giving us the opportunity to get something like that, even if you buy the game digitally, because I would prefer to have the game digitally, but I also I appreciate being able to have the physical book to keep on the coffee table. People can flip through it and they see it when they come over and they say, "Ooh, do you have this game?" And I'll say, "As a matter of fact, I do. It's right here." So yeah, I think that'll be nice.
That is pretty cool. And then there's a few other things the trailer went into. It talked about the Amiibo support, and it made it very clear that every single Amiibo, or at least every single like figure Amiibo, like the Animal Crossing cards are a little more sketchy, will have representation in the Super Mario Bros. 8-bit mode. So like, not only will Mario, Peach, Luigi, Link, and Kirby be playable, but also Duck Hunt. Also, the squid from the Splatoon 3 pack. Also, KK Slider, Isabelle, and Tom Nook. Also, Bowser will be playable against Bowser. And that's like one of the things that's excited me most is that, yes, even though it is completely like skin level, the fact that you can play as Wii Fit Trainer controls exactly the same as Mario. But being able to tell myself that I'm playing as the Wii Fit Trainer and then having her make the Wii Fit Trainer sounds like, that's, for whatever it's worth, probably the most exciting thing that I've heard about this game. Being able to play as Duck Hunt and like wondering what that's going to look like when it manifests in game. Like, will it be the dog from the original Duck Hunt game? How will the duck itself manifest? Will it be modeled after the modern Duck Hunt? I don't know. It's this stuff is just so interesting to me.
What's going to happen when you put Sonic in there? He's actually a good platformer.
Then you're in ROM hack heaven, I guess.
Yeah, it's like So Mario came to life finally.
Sure. There is one thing I'm kind of worried about in this game, and it's the fact that this game doesn't do literally everything you would want. So it sounds like kind of a stupid complaint, but the lack of checkpoints, the lack of like slopes, like Mario 3 slopes, the lack of like custom editable assets other than like changing their size and a couple of their properties, and then the inability to use bosses other than Bowser, like all that stuff like makes me a little worried. And it could be because like the game looks so good otherwise that like I'm worried about this small insignificant shit. But I don't know. It's when I heard that things are not going to be in this game, like maybe a tiny red flag goes off in my head. I don't know if either of you felt similar.
No, I think it's not a big deal. I mean, there are certain things that I can understand why they wouldn't include it because there's not a really obvious way to translate it to the other games, to the other art styles, the other game modes. So like the slopes make sense to me because if you put in a slope from Super Mario World, like Choco Island had all the slopes in it that were made for really interesting gameplay, and it made the platforming different than in any other Mario game before that, and it was exciting. But you put that in there, and then you take it back to the original Super Mario Brother engine, and there's no way for them to translate that into something within that game that actually makes sense. It would become a stairway or something, and that would play so differently that I don't think it would really hold your intent. So there's certain sacrifices that are going to be made for the modularity of these level designs to be applicable across the different game modes. So I think that is a reasonable limitation. As for some of the other things like other bosses, that could totally be added later. So I bet if there's a lot of demand, if the game sells well, if Nintendo wants to keep refreshing it, let's say around November, it would make a lot of sense for them to do something to kick up some additional news coverage and get people talking and thinking about Mario Maker again 2 months after the original release. That's the kind of thing they could add that would get people interested, and start adding new things. Make new levels available that famous people have designed or whatever, and then also, just adding stuff that was never in Mario before. And now you can try these things out, and we have some ideas for what you can do with them, but there's probably a lot of things that you'll try that we wouldn't even have thought of.
Sure. I think what also came out of this was it detailed the 100 Mario mode and the 10 Mario mode a little more. They made it very clear that to play the 100 Mario mode and 10 Mario mode, it pre-selects levels like offline, like it automatically downloads a number of levels for you, and you play them all in a row with either 100 Marios or 10 Marios. Like I think for the 10 Mario mode, you get 8 lives, and then for the you get 8 levels you have to beat with 10 lives, And then for the 100 Mario mode, you have to beat 15 levels with 100 Marios. And I wonder if they're going to scale the difficulty at all, or if they're just going to throw random levels at you that like might be of lesser quality that they just identified based on algorithms. Like, this is more complicated, this will probably be harder. And then it also made it clear that these will also be the modes where a lot of their like pre-installed levels are going to come about. So if you don't have a web connection, this is still going to allow you to play this mode by 15 of the 60 or whatever pre-included levels they have in the game are. Like, they're going to allow you to at least play those modes offline. Though I think the idea of playing Super Mario Maker offline is a really depressing concept.
A lot of people will.
Yeah, I mean that's one of the appeals of playing a Nintendo system in the first place, is that you don't have this Xbox One concern that there was a couple years back. I mean, PS4, like, there's a pretty heavy amount of DRM, and like they didn't even get in trouble for it. Like, my PS4 console was actually mostly offline for the first few months of living at my apartment. It would not let me play a single digital game I downloaded without checking in like once every time the system was turned on. Which is something weird like that they never brought about. But with Nintendo, it's just like if you download it, you're fine. Anywho, that's Super Mario Maker. Look forward to that on the 11th of September. New releases! Pandora's Tower is out on the Wii U eShop as a Wii Virtual Console title for $20, continuing Nintendo's hardcore August. Last week it was Golden Sun, I think. And then there might have been something the week before that. Europe got Xenoblade.
Last week was Golden Sun: The Lost Age and an Onimusha strategy game that I think nobody had heard of until it came out on Virtual Console.
Onimusha Tactics is a game that I had not thought about nor heard its name in at least 10 years. It's probably a fine game, but I don't know that anyone was really clamoring for that game or was really ever all that nostalgic for it. I mean, it's probably been almost 10 years since any Onimusha game came out. That series isn't even relevant anymore, so it's just completely bizarre that they would choose to bring back this strategy RPG offshoot spin-off thing of it. But it's cool. I'm glad Capcom continues to support Virtual Console even with really weird things like that, and I hope they'll continue, because at some point they'll release a weird thing that you or I will have a very specific memory of and fondness for, or have always been curious about. So even if it's not this one, maybe it's the next one. So I hope they keep doing it.
Like Resident Evil 2 and 64, which they can finally release now that there's no file size limits.
Just because you can doesn't mean you should.
Hey,
that goes for that game's that port's entire existence going back to 1999.
Yeah, I was always curious about it just to see how badly the cutscenes were compressed, and
real bad.
They announced
real bad.
They announced the HD remake this week, so I thought it might have been relevant, but we'll see.
Excellent. And this is the Pandora's Tower is also the first game release on the North American eShop that you can play with just the gamepad, and like a Wii original release coming out now. It's the first one you can play with just the gamepad, which is pretty exciting, because that's probably the only way I would play this game. Getting Wii controllers out is like too much of a hassle for me.
Yeah, that's annoying. I mean, Pandora's Tower does have pointer controls, so some people think that's the best way to play it. I played it with a classic controller when we did retroactive on it on RFN. And if you're curious about Pandora's Tower, I'd say go check that out, because I didn't play that much of it, but some of the other guys pretty much beat it and had a lot to say about it, and they really, really liked it. So there's a lot of good in-depth discussion there. But I had forgotten that because the first 3 or 4 games that Nintendo released on this service for the Wii download games didn't support Classic Controller originally, which means you can't play them on the gamepad. Well, you can look at them on the gamepad as a display, but you can't use the gamepad controls to play them. And so it's been so long that I'd actually forgotten that was even supported. And so when Pandora's Tower was announced, people started talking about that, and I was surprised because I hadn't tried it myself yet. So I just turned on, actually earlier tonight, I was playing Kirby's Return to Dreamland when you asked me to do the show, Alex.
Oh, wow.
I turned that on intending to play that on the gamepad because I assumed that it supported the classic controller, but it doesn't. You can play it with just the Wii remote in like sideways mode, but it doesn't actually support the classic controller because Nintendo was wildly inconsistent about supporting that thing back on the Wii. So it's too bad. But yeah, I'm glad Pandora's Tower does. I know in Europe they just got Xenoblade Chronicles last week. You can play that on the gamepad with the controls fully supported, and that's amazing. That's a really nice option, and I hope that comes out in America too, because I think it sounds like that's probably a better version than the new 3DS one. So if you either don't have a new 3DS or you don't want to play a version with lower resolution and lower frame rate, I hope you'll be able to download it on the Wii U and just play it on the gamepad. I think a lot of people would find that very useful.
I certainly would. That's the reason why I haven't played the new 3DS game, is because like I played it at PAX and it just doesn't look good. And I wouldn't even say it looked acceptable, even though it sounds like it plays excellently otherwise. Like, my problem with the new 3DS game is that it didn't play good enough for me to get it while still owning a physical copy of the Wii game.
Yeah, well, the thing is with Xenoblade, that is a game that you want to play at least partially because it does look nice, because the world is so large and so cool looking and so enticing when you step out into it. You see places and things that you want to go up and get closer to and explore. And if the game doesn't look decent, at least, then that actually kind of hurts your enjoyment of the game. So that was the big disappointment with the new 3DS port from my perspective. So I think on the Wii U, with it outputting through HDMI now, that's going to be a really nice version of that game probably, and being able to play it entirely portably on the gamepad with the controls and everything built right into it is a pretty damn nice feature.
I'm playing Xenoblade 3D right now. I don't think it looks bad compared to what I played of the Wii version, but I played the Wii version with composite going into an HD TV, so it kind of looked bad anyway.
Right.
And I kind of value being able to play it while it's really slow at work or something.
All right. Next up, Garfield Kart on the Nintendo 3DS for $29.99. That is $10 more than both Pandora's Tower and Kirby Return to Dreamland, based on the popular Jim Davis comic strip. I also played Dragon Ball Z Battle. It's Extreme Butoden, I think that's what it's called.
Right.
The demo for that, I finally got to play it. Let me say, if you like really classic like arcade fighters and or Dragon Ball Z, this game plays pretty awesome. Like, the 3D looks really good. It has that it's Arc Sys. Is that what it is, Donald?
Arc System Works.
Arc System Works. It has that like super fluid animation. It's like it feels also a little bit like the 3D games because there's many special moves. They all look cool and they're all very easy to pull off. The demo has like Goku, Vegeta, not Kid Goku, Gohan, his son, and I think one more. And it's a really nice game. I recommend it.
Sounds like you're a real Dragon Ball expert there, Alex.
Here's the thing, I forget the characters in it. I also only just read the manga for the first time this year in its entirety, so I actually have to probably like do another lap through it before I fully understand. I skipped the anime completely.
Yeah, okay. I've never even touched the manga, but the anime series is a lot of fun and ridiculous, and it's a fun childhood memory and teenage memory for a lot of people.
Sure. And then there's also...
I'm kind of amazed that they're still milking it after about 30 years, though.
And they're still making money. Dragon Ball Z Resurrection F, the new Frieza movie that just had a limited release in theaters, that's now like the 9th or 10th or maybe even 8th like best selling or highest grossing anime film in the States of all time. I think the Yu-Gi-Oh movie and like 2 or 3 of the Pokemon movies have the top 4 under lockdown. But the fact that an anime movie, much more a Dragon Ball movie in 2015, can still break the top 10 of all time is a really cool thing.
I think the fact that top 10 isn't all Miyazaki movies is actually just really sad.
Well,
the fact that more people would go see a Pokemon movie in the theater than to go see The Wind Rises or something like that.
The Wind Rises is in the top 10. I think
good.
almost 100% positive. I think it's like in the middle, but it is in the top 10.
Spirited Away should be way up there. Yeah.
I can find that press email from Funimation. I might. Anyways, moving on to news. NPDs just came out for July. On the software front, LEGO Jurassic World was the best-selling game of all combined formats, barring bundles which would have given the win to Batman, Arkham Knight. The 3DS version, I thought it was the best-selling one, Donald. I didn't know it was the second best.
Yeah, the rankings, I think, went 360, 3DS, I think then PS3, Xbox One, Wii U, PS4, Vita.
Okay.
So the Wii U version, the small victory though it was, actually managed to outsell the PS4 version, which goes to show who's buying the PS4 and who's buying, say, the 360 version at this point.
I also think the ecosystems for all these systems are very, very different. For instance, on the PS4, the LEGO games go on sale for like sub $20, or in some cases like LEGO Marvel sub $10, like every few months. So I wouldn't be surprised if there was a hefty number of people waiting for sales. On the other hand, on the Wii U, you're probably hitting the LEGO audience a lot more. And you're also probably hitting an audience who's more used to paying full prices for games that don't necessarily deserve it immediately, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And then 360 is like, that's a mammoth, and like I bet that's going to be a lead platform for many games for some time to come.
Yeah, especially since that's the first place that had console Minecraft. That's going to be a juggernaut with the younger set and people getting hand-me-down systems.
Sure.
Although, I'm planning to buy my own 360 this fall because I can actually afford that unlike an Xbox One.
If you get an Xbox One, you might kind of get a 360 too, though. I mean, I should say also, not two. They haven't made Xbox 2 yet. They're still on the line.
Yeah, but the kind of games that I want to play on that, I'm not sure how well they're going to do with getting backwards compatibility because some of those games aren't even available digitally. And I think a lot of the backwards compatibility is going to be focused on games that are available in the games on demand.
Yeah, you're probably right. Although they could let you put the disc in, so that's, but yeah, I guess we don't really know yet. But I'm glad you brought up Minecraft because I think when you look at the success of LEGO Jurassic World, regardless of that game's quality or the quality of the movie, I mean, it's obviously very popular. And when you look at how that game is selling really well on both 3DS and Wii U, it really does kind of highlight the very stark absence of Minecraft on either one of those systems. And I'm sure that now that Microsoft owns Minecraft and they are kind of in the business of porting it to pretty much everything, including PS4, PS3, and I think it's either on Vita or coming to Vita still.
It's been on Vita since like last November, I think.
Okay. And the Vita version in Japan is like a 500,000 seller already.
Yeah, I mean Japan would be the main reason to put it on Vita, of course. But I still think you're probably going to hear about Minecraft on 3DS and Wii U next year.
If not
even, yeah, I think they'd be crazy not to. I mean, they lose nothing because it's not like Minecraft is exclusive to Xbox or something like that, or even PCs. It's already on everything else, and there's so much money on the table for Microsoft to make by selling it to Nintendo kids. So why wouldn't they do it?
Sure.
I'm sure it'll run fine on both systems, so they've got to be working on it. They've got to be. And Nintendo clearly wants it too, because it legitimizes their platforms in a very specific way to a certain key demographic.
Absolutely. It's always like a little depressing whenever I turn on Water Plaza and then I see like that non-Minecraft game like in the rotation.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think Minecraft will be an NX launch game.
That would be cool.
I think Nintendo will seal that up right from the very. I mean, it's like I don't know how many people will really care, but I think it will sell just fine.
That would be a good like next E3 Nintendo digital event reveal. Like it's coming to NX, but also it's coming to these two platforms.
And cross-buy.
Cross-buy.
And it's available right now.
Yep. Buy it now on Wii U. Play it on your NX later. It's the way to go.
Excellent. Splatoon sold 85,000 units this month in North America, and it's also worth noting that if all of the different retail SKUs were split up, so like every version of every game got one listing on the NPDs, Splatoon would have been 6th place this month. 85,000 units during last month in North America, combining retail and eShop sales. Wii U sales were 10% over the first 7 months of 2014, which included Mario Kart 8's launch month.
Yeah, that's for software. They're very specific about that. And although the weird thing is, since Splatoon's come out, the hardware sales of the Wii U in Japan and North America seem to be roughly identical.
Mm.
So,
Okay.
so in a way, Splatoon is moving hardware, but in a way, it's not because Wii U is doing sub 50,000 a month.
Right. I'm just happy that Splatoon is like a successful video game on its own accord. Like, regardless of what systems it's moving or not moving, Splatoon is probably a way bigger success for Nintendo than maybe even Nintendo anticipated.
I think so. Yeah, I think it's done really well for them, and they bet really big on it. It was really the only game they released all summer long, and but that has also given them a certain clarity and focus to keep attention on it and to keep updating it and devote a lot of resources and a lot of social media presence to it, and it has given their fan base a lot to talk about even week to week, which is important. And I think Splatoon's a really interesting model for Nintendo going forward. Not that every game they make is going to be handled in the same way, but there are certain kinds of games, things like Mario Kart, Mario Party, Smash Brothers, etc., that it makes a lot of sense to release them in a similar way or an enhanced, evolved way, as we've seen with Splatoon.
Sure. Yeah, hardware's a struggle for Nintendo, as we were saying. Moving on, Unity. There was a 2015 Unity Europe conference, which shed some light on the use of Unity on 3DS and specifically new 3DS. They were saying that Unity works. They confirmed that current 3DS developers will receive free Unity licenses similar to distribution on Wii U, and the program is in beta with more titles releasing to take advantage of it by the end of the year. During the video, it was also announced that Unity games were in the process of porting titles to the new 3DS, specifically calling out Wind Up Night 2, which released on the eShop this week as a Wii U title. My note here for this story is they literally made a fucking Vita. And that, in North America, the Vita was sold with promise. It had a retail release early on in its life. And then eventually, once they realized that new 3DS's value, just like the Vita's value, is on very niche things, the support turned almost exclusively to indie games. Now, Vita has a lot of cool Japanese support, but like, I got very Vita vibes upon like seeing this video and seeing like how excited some of these people were about the idea of new 3DS getting all these indie games. But to me, like the Vita, that just tells me like, look at all the games the new 3DS isn't getting.
I think what they're aiming for with this is just like with the Minecraft example, they want to give a chance for these games to sort of legitimize the platform as an indie source. Like, because so far we've got Binding of Isaac, Xenoblade, I think it's Lifespeed, the racing game, and now Wind Up Night as the confirmed exclusives. But although Unity will work on the original 3DS, it's not advised just because the power isn't there. But if you can get an experience like you can elsewhere on the new 3DS, it maybe pushes you to upgrade, especially since the indie developers tend to be pretty aggressive with things like cross-buy. We have Woe coming out next week on Wii U, and that's going to be retroactively cross-buy for anybody who bought it, including people who got it in the Humble Bundle.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just a matter of building up that library. Maybe it might mean a few thousand units difference, but that could be a big one.
Excellent. And do you think we are ever going to see a new 3DS game put out by Nintendo that gets a retail release? Or is Xenoblade literally it?
I think they might try one more time next year with something. I think waiting a while. I mean, I think they should do some digital stuff soon. Like, I think they should at least announce it now because that's going to juice the sales of the new system. I'm appalled that they haven't already done that. But I think in terms of retail release, it's a much bigger hurdle. You look at the sales of Xenoblade 3D, it sold terribly, and that's a game that
Whoa, did it? I thought it was supposedly sold relatively well.
Given the size of what the new 3DS user base is compared to the original one, it actually did okay. Like it sold about 75,000 in its launch month. We haven't in North America, or at least in the US, we haven't gotten anything since for it. But they're compared to what you can do with realistically a 400,000 unit user base, if you're lucky, 75%, a quarter of attach rate. That's all right. I could see them doing a lot more enhancing of games with the new 3DS. Like I would bet dollars to donuts the next Pokemon game is going to have some benefit to play on the new 3DS, but I don't think they're going to play the exclusive card again unless it's something that is designed ground up from this thing. And at that point, why not just put it on the next portal?
I think they need something, but the time to do it would be like next summer when there's been a significant more of those new systems released, and by then they can kind of gather themselves and find something new to do. I mean, I think it's sad that they released this thing without more software support in the first place. They should have had more lined up to go, and the fact that it's just been the one game so far is really kind of pathetic. But the indie games will help, but that's not going to make any difference to anybody who's looking in the store and saying, why should I spend $50 more for this one when they've got used 3DS XLs for $100 or less. So I think it's a problem for Nintendo. I think they need to step up and show some commitment. The more they release these hardware revisions that are significantly more expensive and have little or no software support to them, the harder it's going to be for them to do it down the road. And it bodes poorly for things like NX when you see that the most recent hardware that they've released has very little support. They don't really talk about it. They're not doing anything interesting with it, and it is expensive. I think that makes it much more difficult to sell to the mainstream gamer or mainstream consumer the next handheld or system of any kind, really. I mean, I think already the Wii U is really overpriced currently for how many games are available for it and for what it does in comparison to its competition. And the new 3DS is even much worse than that because it's essentially competing with itself, with earlier versions of itself that are functionally identical. Xenoblade was not a great choice to debut with that hardware. It would have been a nice secondary game to something else that's a little more mainstream, a little more widespread popular. But I really think they need to redeem the new 3DS quite a bit. I mean, you guys know how I feel about this. I've been harping on it for months, but I think it's really sad the way Nintendo has treated that system since it came out.
I wonder if they think Happy Home Designer is going to be the game that redeems it, just because the other big defining feature of the new 3DS is the fact that you don't need an infrared adapter to use Amoeba. So if Happy Home Designer blows up the way it's done in Japan at this point, they might see hardware upgrades just from people who don't want to mess around with the card reader, just tap and go.
I think it'll move some units, but considering that you can buy an adapter for the old system that does exactly the same thing, and that's launching with this Animal Crossing game, I definitely don't see it as a redemption for the system. I don't see it as proof that the new 3DS needed to exist, that the market demanded it. And I don't think it's a very strong case that, hey, you should really buy this because then you won't have to carry around this little dongle thing. I think a lot of people say, I'd rather spend the $15 on the dongle thing than to spend $75 to, upgrade my system. So it'll help, but it doesn't really make a very strong case.
Yeah, and I'm trying to think about specifically just for a fun mental exercise, what that next summer game could be that they put in retail. And I do have 3 ideas, but none of them fix any of the problems you're saying. I think if they were to do another remake, Super Mario Sunshine is probably the obvious choice to me of what they might want to do. If they want to
I
do
don't
an
think they
original
should do a
game,
remake. I think remakes are a bad way to go.
and then two alternative options, which might not fix it. I think about the fact that Splatoon was made mostly, like the content in Splatoon was made pretty much in about like a year, if not even slightly less. And I was wondering if there would be a chance that they could make a decently quick turnaround if they were to do either a 3DS enhanced version of Splatoon that's considered its own original game, or a Splatoon spin-off that's kind of like Splatoon but just for new 3DS. But then that might not be big enough to justify the system in itself. And the other option is Pikmin, because this is probably the best chance yet we would have at a properly functional Pikmin handheld game.
I don't think Pikmin makes sense on such a small screen.
You don't think we're ever going to see that on a handheld?
I don't think it's a good idea. I'm not saying we'll never see it, but I don't think it's a good idea.
So
But I do think an original Splatoon game exclusively for new 3DS next year would be very smart. If they can pull that off, that would be good.
That's good.
And they should do Sunshine, but again, a remake is not really a good reason to buy a system.
I really just want to...
If they remake Sunshine to be a good game, then it'd be indistinguishable. It would be readily distinguishable from the original game. So they could almost rename it at that point. It would be completely brand new.
If Super Mario Sunshine did not have Mario on the cover and it was just Bob, Super Bob Sunshine, people would think it was one of the best games ever made. Only because it's attached to Mario and comes as a successor to Mario 64 and Mario World and Mario 3 do people see it as like some weird fucking black sheep. Isn't it crazy how Mario Sunshine is a black sheep of a series?
I think it's not a series, it's just one game, but I do think that people misremember Mario Sunshine, and I think it's an amazing game with a couple of fairly major flaws that could be fixed in a remake, and I would love to see that happen. I'd love for that game to get the respect that it deserves, and for more people to play it.
And excellent. And before we move on to our last story, happy birthday, Donald!
Yay!
I found the sound thing back, everybody.
Oh, and
The old-timey cash register sound.
And Neil was worried we weren't going to get anybody here tonight.
Okay, Donald, tell us, how old are you turning today?
31.
31. It's Johnny. How old are you?
Let's not talk about that.
Okay.
He's older than me. Let's go with that.
I'm a little older than Donald.
Okay, slightly older.
Happy
than
birthday,
Donald.
man.
Thanks.
Excellent. So we did it. We did it. We got Donald to turn 31 on this show today. We got Johnny. I found the soundboard, and this is also our first episode with chat. This is the best episode ever, everybody. It is time. It is time. It is time not to end the show. We still have one more story left. But it is time to talk about this Metroid prototype that's happening for Wii U and 3DS. It was Tamaki. Is it pronounced Tamaki, Donald?
Yeah.
Okay. Tamaki, he did one of his scoops, his Unseen 64 scoops, where it was revealed. I suppose this might technically count as a rumor, but I mostly trust him by this point. That MercurySteam, the studio behind Konami's Castlevania Lords of Shadow, as well as Lords of Shadow 2, and the 3DS game Mirror of Fate, which played a lot like a 2D God of War game, almost exactly, in the same way the original Lords of Shadow games play like 3D God of War games. So there was a rumor that they pitched a new Metroid Series to Nintendo. It was going to be on Wii U and 3DS. It sounds like Nintendo ultimately ended up turning it down, but there were hiring calls. They were trying to expand their staff for the game late May this year, it sounds like.
Yeah.
And then it was almost a similar concept to Federation Force, but also Metroid Prime Hunters, that it would be first person, but it would also be Samus as well as 7 other playable bounty hunters. So I guess it is a similar concept to Metroid Prime Hunters. So it sounds like this thing ultimately wasn't brought to life, but it also sounds like MercurySteam is probably taking the idea and running with it as its own non-Metroid game, because MercurySteam's update, its website updated, teasing whatever their next game ends up being. It portrays a man in what appears to be a cockpit of a spaceship smoking a cigar. The accompanying text reads, exploring new worlds, fighting strange new creatures, discovering new heroes, expect news soon. So, I'm really glad MercurySteam isn't making the first real Metroid game in maybe 7 to 10 years.
It's just the timing of it was so bad for MercurySteam, just because Nintendo had to know that they still had something Metroid that they were going to show off in a couple of weeks after that interview. But MercurySteam was very blatant when they were hiring people, saying, "Yeah, we're working on a Metroid pitch, and we need to step up for that." So now that Nintendo's apparently turned it down and they're going to pivot that, it's probably not going to end up on Nintendo consoles, but at least the seeds were there, and it might play similar, even if it doesn't have sort of the same sparks that the quote unquote real Metroid games do.
Yeah.
I hate to be a choosy beggar, but I'm kind of glad MercurySteam is not working on Metroid. I want more Metroid games. I don't know that I really care about more MercurySteam games. And after seeing that 3DS game that they did for Castlevania, which really, really missed the point of 2D Metroidvania style gameplay and ran very poorly on the hardware as well. I think it was kind of a disaster from top to bottom. I don't really think they're up to the task, and I wish them the best with whatever that game turns into. But I'm kind of glad it won't be called Metroid.
Yep. And that it also sounded like for Metroid Federation Force that this game was going to have some greater context in the future of Metroid, which is like what I was thinking of when I thought of the possibility of this game actually becoming some kind of reality with or without MercurySteam. Like, is there a chance that Federation Force points to this multiple bounty hunter future? Because, I mean, there are so many games that are originally male-only protagonists up female protagonists in Nintendo games, which goes towards a very separate issue, but I was wondering maybe they could be doing the same thing with this game, like giving more players more characters to identify with. Like I thought maybe that's like their play.
There's exactly one bounty hunter that anybody cares about in the Metroid franchise, and that's Samus. Yeah. And they've tried across 2 or 3 games already to establish these other bounty hunters as viable characters and get people to care about them, and it hasn't worked so far, and I don't think it's going to work with Federation Force, and I don't think it would have worked with this game. And I'm not saying there can't be other characters. I mean, there already are other characters people care about. People like Ridley, people like Kraid, people like the Chozo. The people like the little monsters in Super Metroid. There are ways to do this that don't involve you playing as different characters and don't involve Samus having to stand around and have conversations with other people. I don't think those things should happen in Metroid. I mean, excellent. They're welcome to try it and experiment with it, but so far I don't think those experiments have been very successful.
And then one final question, specifically for you, Johnny, because Donald, you're not that huge of a Metroid fan, I'm guessing.
Not particularly, although the way that people are reacting to Federation Force, I'm pretty sure it's going to end up being my game of the year next year.
Okay, we'll see. So, Johnny, let me ask you then. Let's say retro is not a choice. What developer do you pick for your next Metroid game?
Chair.
And what kind of Metroid game is it?
It's one like Shadow Complex, and it would be made by Chair.
Who made Shadow Complex?
Yeah.
Okay. Is that game playable on Xbox One / is it planned to be?
Apparently, yes.
It is, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not in the preview program yet. I need someone to send me an invite. So please, someone send me an invite. But I will totally play Shadow Complex again. and I want them to make more games like that because they actually did it right. Or you know what? Tom Happ, he could do it.
What'd he do?
Axiom Verge.
Okay, so there's Johnny's top picks. And so you want 2D Metroid games. You don't want another
Yes.
first-person one unless it was retro?
I think retro is uniquely qualified. I mean, I'm not even sure Armature could do it. They tried to do the first-person Mega Man X game. We saw the weird unreleased demo of that, and it didn't look that great. But yeah, I think I like Metroid Prime. I mean, I love Metroid Prime. I love all three of them. I would love for Retro to make another one, but I think really they're the developer to do that. And if you're setting Retro aside, then I would like Metroid to return to 2D. And I'd really like to see both styles proceed forward in parallel. But again, if we're talking about developers other than Retro, I would be most interested in seeing someone give a shot at the 2D version. Because it's been even longer since we had one of those. It's been since Zero Mission, which is 2003. So it's been 12 years since we had a new 2D Metroid. And even that was a quasi-remake.
Excellent. And
so let's have Metroid 5.
Metroid 5.
Hell yeah.
Excellent. Metroid 5 made by an independent developer.
Yeah.
All right.
There's 100 of them already trying to do it under a different name. So Nintendo, just pick your favorite and make it official and give them all the resources.
All
Let's
right.
make it happen.
And there you have it. That's our show for this week, everybody. Thank you for watching. Thank you. Happy birthday, Donald. I didn't think you would look this bad.
Oh, wow.
You know what? This is how we're going to finish the show. Happy birthday, Donald. Happy 31st birthday. We're all very happy for you and proud of you. Donald can be found on Twitter at DonaldMick. That's at DonaldMick. And Johnny, you have some things to share with us?
I don't even know you. Sure, I'll plug something. First off, I hope people will go check out Radio Free Nintendo with new host James Jones and the return of our friend Greg Leahy. I'm excited to. I heard that the first recording went well last night. I haven't heard it myself. I'll hear it when everybody else does on Sunday, and I'm excited for that. So check that out. It's on iTunes and on NintendoWorldReport.com, and there's a new episode of my music podcast going up this weekend with someone named Alex Kalafi who doesn't have dog ears. And it was recorded actually back before E3, and I feel terrible that it's taken me this long, although I don't feel all that terrible anymore now that you've subjected me to this horrible thing. But Alex and I play and listen to, and now you made it worse, but we featured the music of a great classic rock band called The Band. And a lot of you will have heard of them, and you should definitely check it out because there'll be a lot of amazing songs on there. And if you've never heard of the band, you should especially check it out because I think you'll be shocked at how many great songs they have and how much fun it is to listen to them. So you can find Discover Music Project on crosstalk.com, that's with a W, crosstawk.com, and search for it on iTunes, Discover Music Project, and there will be more episodes of that show coming soon.
Excellent. On Twitter, at Jonny Metts, at JonnyMetts, at Donald Mick on Twitter, at DonaldMick on Twitter. I'm at CULAFIA on Twitter if you want to see more disasters for yourself. And then I think that's our show for this week. Johnny, thank you so much for coming through on the clutch at the last minute. I'm sure you don't regret it.
Happy to help.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
That sounds awful.